we have covered in previous episodes on the podcast, and I hope you guys have been able to track along so far, for those of you who've been listening for a very long time. But for the first time listener, I'm going to go over and make a brief synopsis of what we've been talking about so far over here on the podcast. And one of the key things that I've been trying to get you, gentle listener, to come on board with is the fact that what we do or who we are, in a sense, is not the technical aspect of our trade. So, in other words, I'm not a photographer primarily. That is what I do, weddings, events, but primarily my business function isn't photography. If you're listening to this and you're a planner, or you're a cake artist, or a makeup artist, or you're an MC, then your primary business function isn't emceeing, isn't wedding planning, and isn't putting things in the oven. It isn't baking and decorating. Because the primary purpose of a business is to create a customer. So what that means is that our primary function, what we do every day when we get up out of bed and we put on our business hat, our primary function is to create a customer. Is to get someone who didn't know about us before to know about us, to like us, to trust us, provided that that person has a need for what it is that we provide, and to get them to do business with us. So that is our primary function. So the primary hat that we wear isn't the technical side. It isn't the photography. It isn't the planning. It isn't the workflows. It's not the spreadsheets. It's not which kind of oven or which kind of scalpel, or is it spatula, or whatever it is that you bakers use. That is not the primary function in the business. The primary function in the business is creating a customer, is looking for clients. Because if we do not have clients and customers, then the technical aspect is redundant. If I don't get people who are willing to book me, then it doesn't matter how fantastic my skills are behind the camera. Nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to work. So that is one of the key stones and one of the cardinal points that I've been pushing on the podcast, and you could say it's the beginning of the journey, the beginning of the discourse that we have over here. Now, assuming that we all are on board, I know that some of you aren't, don't worry, I'll take my time, and hopefully I'll be able to convince you guys in future episodes, or whenever we do meet in persons or in shows, because shows and training sessions are beginning to come back. So I trust that I'm going to be able to meet you guys one-on-one at different avenues. So if you ever at an event where I'm speaking afterwards, please feel free, reach out, come, let's have a chat. So hopefully I'll be able to bring you guys on board to this main thesis of the podcast that we preach over here. So, assuming that we are all in agreement that that's our primary business function, not the technical side, but the business side of bringing in customers, you will find that you are primarily a salesperson. So all of us listening to the podcast right now, whether you are in the wedding business or not, so long as you have a side hustle or a business that you're trying to promote, all of us are salespeople. We're all salesmen. We're all saleswomen. That is our primary function. So, if we accept that sales is our primary function, there is one thing that ties into it that a lot of people don't talk about, but if you listen to the much more older and established speakers, it's something that they do mention from time to time. Think about sales as a sport. There's some people who use that analogy. Some people use the analogy of military campaigns, and some people use the analogy of a sport. But whatever metaphor we choose to use, you will find that sales is a high performance industry or high performance sport. You only eat what you kill. If you don't put in the right activities, you don't get any kills, and therefore you don't get anything to eat. You don't win any medals. I mean, whatever the metaphor it is that you try to use. So sales is a high-performance discipline. And one thing that is in common with other high-performance disciplines, whether it's sports or life in the military life or martial arts or whatever it is, you find that there's this whole idea of practicing, executing, and there's also the aspect of taking the edge off. So if you're a martial artist, you don't train 7 days a week, every single week of the year. There's intense training time, especially leading up to a competition, and there's a time when you're supposed to let your body rest and recover. And it's the same thing with soldiers. Yes, you're on high alert pretty much most of the time, but you're taking on and off duty rosters and duty cycles and things of that nature. And so it's the same with sales as well. Because we do not realize, a lot of us don't realize that this is a high performance mindset, and also especially since there are no physical boundaries that we have to contend with anyway, because it's not like we're getting into the gym and hitting the weights, and when you're hitting the weights, you're pushing, I don't know, 100 kg, 80 kg, whatever. By the time you're done, you're spent. So since we're not dealing with physical parameters, a lot of us don't realize that we have to take time to take the edge off. We need to take off the weights. We've done the sparring, the training, we've done the executing, so it's now time to rest. So older, more established sales professionals, if you listen to those guys, like late Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins, okay, Tom Hopkins is still with us at the moment, Brian Tracy, they all use different metaphors. I think for Brian Tracy, no, not Brian Tracy, the guy who talked about the highly effective habits of successful people or something like that. I can't remember his name. So the metaphor he uses is sharpening the saw. So you take time to sharpen the saw. You don't sharpen all the time. You take time off to rest and to recuperate. So it's an essential part of the sales process. In fact, I think it was Grant Cardone. No, Grant Cardone says if you haven't had a good night's sleep, you're going to be useless. There's a lot of rejection that is involved in sales, and it requires you to be sharp. You have to be at your wits. You have to be confident, and it's hard to do all those things if you haven't had a good night's sleep. Yes, we're not all going to be able to get 8 hours of sleep every day, every single week of the year, because life gets busy. We have kids, we have other things we're working on. Some of you have a 9 to 5. So sometimes there might be times that you have to push burn the midnight oil. But rest and recuperation is an essential part of the process as well, because if you do not rest and recuperate, you're not going to be able to hit the floor and give it 100% the next day. So it doesn't matter which side of the aisle that you're on. If you're on the personal sales side like me, or if you're on the whole branding and online space, because some people believe that, picking up the phone, talking to people, and that's overrated, it's ineffective, that what you should do is focus on building an online brand and stuff like that and get people to come towards you. So that's the difference between outbound and an inbound approach. You going out to bring in the business versus you trying to sit online and look pretty and hope that the business finds you, that the customers come to you. So whatever side of the aisle you are on, we all need to rest and recuperate, because it's not easy to put out content, assuming that's your play, the content play, the whole online marketing and branding thing. Waking up every day to write those articles or put together those infographics or to put together those wonderful photos or to call through all the images you've done from past weddings so that you can come up with good content and things like that. All that gets very grueling when you have to do it every single day for the rest of the year because you're trying to bring in business. So whether you're trying to sit online and look pretty or you're trying to go out and chase down your business, it can be grueling and it can take its toll. So we need regular periods to rest and recuperate. Now, how does that work for people? It depends. I know some of my colleagues who, for them, it involves going out every Friday, hanging out with the boys and drinking, and that's enough to take off some steam. For some of you, it's going to involve church, prayer, spiritual retreats. You never know. And for some of you, you just might need a good night's rest. You've been sleeping every day at 12 and waking up at 4 and then back on the grind. So for some of you, it just means you have to pick that day or those couple of days or series of days where you go to bed at 9 instead, so that by the time you wake up at 4, to begin with everything, with kids, with school runs, office work, everything, you will be rested and be able to give it your all, to give it a good fight, to pick up the phone, start calling customers, to attend your wedding fairs, or to do your online marketing and branding thing. So, wherever it is that you fall on the spectrum, rest and recuperation is an essential part of it. But bottom line, let's remember that we're in a high performance sport, and so it's not just the doing that leads to success, that leads to the gold medal. It's also the resting. So it's counterintuitive, but all high performance individuals know that. So it doesn't matter if you're Usain Bolt or that Australian guy who swims very fast. I can't remember his name, the 7 foot guy. It's not just the reps you put in at the pool or on the court, but it's also how much rest you get, rest, nutrition, and things of that nature. So that's it for today. That's all I have to say, and that's the reason why I hopped on the mic. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. I'll catch you guys on the next recording.